welcome, everyone. Welcome to another edition of Remixing Politics and Culture with me, your host, Pam. I am a public relations and marketing professional with a passion for social justice, voter advocacy, and culture. And I want to just give you a thanks for joining me this evening. I don't see where my guest is just yet, but hopefully he'll be showing up very soon. Oh dear. If not, I'm going to invite some of you guys up here to keep me company until he shows up. How about that? All right. So, the guest that we have this evening actually is known on a national stage. You may have seen him on CNN, MSNBC, The Roland Martin Show, any number of shows. And I told him tonight, just like last time, I said, listen, make sure you come sign on 5 minutes early so I will not panic. So I am going to pretend that I am not panicking. Marsha, I see you. Yay, there you are, Marsha. Thank you. Listen, if you want to, Marsha, you can come up on stage until he comes here and keep me company. Do you see the link? I have the link in the chat. Do you see it? Say yes or no. Whoever sees the link, say yes or no. You're welcome to come up on stage because I don't see Reverend Dr. Turner just yet. And I hope he's not having any problem. You don't see the link. Okay, let me put it back again in the chat. Okay, hold on. I'm putting the link back in the chat. Okay, and that's him calling me now. Hold on, guys. Hey, Pastor Turner. I sent you responded to the email. Oh, it's not on. I don't think it's. Hold on a second. Hold on. I sent it to the only email that I have for you, and it says you said you got it. Looking forward to it. It just says Pastor Robert R.A. Turner. Okay, hold on a second. Okay, let me hold on. Okay. Okay, what is it? Robert Turner? Turner 15 at hotmail.com. Okay. All right. Okay. I just sent it to you. Okay. All right. Thanks. Bye-bye. Okay. All right, guys. That's what happens when you go live. And I thank you so much. Do you see it, Loretta? Okay. Do you guys see the link? Because he's trying to sign on now. Oh, yeah, it's pronounced like Garcia and Marcia. I'm sorry, honey. Do you see the link? It's right above. Do you guys see it? Loretta, do you see it? I appreciate you guys keeping me company until he gets on here. He just called me on the phone. And I don't know what happened. He must have somebody else looking at his email because he responded to one email and not to this one. But at any rate, Marcia, Loretta, Soror, yay. You guys think of some questions to ask. I've got plenty of questions for him and when I see him sign on. Loretta, Marcia. Oh boy. You guys are gems. Here, this is the link. It's in the chat, and it'll enable you to be able to come up on stage if you like. You know. if you want to. Do you see it? You guys see it in the chat? You can use it. I don't see where anybody's used it yet because it'll show me or whatever. Okay. Well, what do you guys think overall about reparations? Do you think it's really possible for us to get them? Because there are other cities that are doing it. I know, I can't think of the city that's in Chicago. Is it Evanston? I don't know. What city is that in Chicago that was trying to actually I thought they were doing the reparations thing. There he is. There he is. Okay. All right. I see. Is the man of the hour.
Hey.
Hey, let me introduce him. Okay. So he is here. I hear a little feedback.
I'm gonna turn mine on mute.
Phone or something on. All right. So I've got the distinct pleasure of welcoming back to the show the Reverend Dr. Robert R.A. Turner. R.A. stands for Richard Allen. He is True Blue AME, right? He is currently the senior pastor of Empowerment Temple AME Church in Baltimore, Maryland. He was previously with the historic Vernon AME Church in Tulsa, Oklahoma, one of the last remaining buildings to stand after the Tulsa massacre. He led the fight for reparations there in Tulsa for all of the damages done to the Black businesses all those years ago and the houses that were pillaged and firebombed. He would literally go to Tulsa City Hall with a bullhorn in one hand and a Bible in the other, demanding reparations there in Tulsa. And Pastor Turner was very instrumental in helping to get mass graves excavated there in Tulsa, and that's still going on right now to this day. As is typical in the AME Church, he was reassigned to Empowerment Temple in Baltimore, Maryland, and he remained true to his passion of reparations or repairing us now. You have seen him on CNN. You have seen him on Roland Martin Unfiltered and any numerous shows across the country. Welcome, Pastor Turner, back to my show. I appreciate you so much.
Hey, how you doing, Sister Pam?
Doing okay.
How you? I'm so grateful and thank you for your patience. To be back on your show is an honor, and I'm just thankful for the opportunity.
Well, I appreciate you so much. So I've got a bunch of questions for you, and I suspect that the listeners do too. You know what? Let's catch up to today. I know you've been doing a lot in reparations work. I've been following you on social media and what have you. Tell us what's the latest going on in your reparations journey right now.
Well, right now, we've had several meetings, strategy meetings with leaders throughout the country from various backgrounds. I'm probably one of the few faith leaders in a lot of these meetings. But it's city leaders, community leaders, grassroots leaders, attorneys, elected officials, authors, people who just love this work are coming together on a regular basis to find ways that we can implement change and solutions. We see the great work being done all across the country, from colleges like Georgetown to states like California to cities like Evanston, and so many others. So many others are forming their own task force, and I'm excited. Also, I'll be releasing a book pretty soon, so I'll be on notice for that. And so just life is busy, and of course the monthly walks that have been a labor of love and physical exertion unlike anything I've ever experienced in my life. These monthly walks to.
Tell us about those monthly walks for those people who don't know, because I didn't put it in the intro about how far you were walking and what have you.
Yeah, so I just turned 40. Oh
Mhm.
man, that's hard to even say. I turned 40. I mean,
You're
goodness.
still young. You're still young.
I think my favorite basketball player once said, it's not the year of the car, it's the miles on the odometer. So I got a lot of miles. But yeah, so when I turned 40, God had already been working with me about what should I be doing here in Baltimore because of the work I did in Tulsa, and what's next, like what happens, knowing that I still have this passion. And then, I mean, really, God just showed me a map and found out how far Baltimore is from DC. And it was roughly 42 miles, matter of fact, from the church's address. And it just hit me. The Spirit of the Lord said 40 for 40 miles for 40 acres. And I was nervous on when to start. I really was, because I did not know if I could do it. I had on my 40 bucket list to have run a marathon.
Okay.
I still hadn't ran a marathon yet, but I have done these walks now 6 times, six or 7, because I just did one from Selma. So this for March, I started in October, so October, November, December, January, February, March. So yeah, 6 times, and the most recent one was longer than 40. It was actually 54. Selma to Montgomery, the same march, and stopped at this, went through the same path that Dr. King went, and they did theirs in 5 days in March, as I did. But I was not going to be down there for 5 days. I did mine in 1 day, and they told me I was the first person in the history of the Selma to Montgomery March to do it in just 1 day.
All right. All right. Yeah, I think I had contacted you about being on the show, and you told me you were in the air.
Yeah.
You were flying at that time.
Yeah.
All right. So listen, this House Resolution 40 that Congresswoman Sheila Jackson introduced is only for a commission to just simply look at reparations. Is it possible? Is it feasible? And if so, what are the next steps? That's what we're trying to get through Congress now, correct?
Yes, it's a remedy study bill. It's a study bill in lieu of providing a remedy. So it is a study. It's trying to figure out how to actually provide that reparations. It's a remedy study bill, and it is something that was started by my frat brother. Tell your pastor I said, hey, he's
Okay.
but by my frat brother John Conyers out of Detroit, Michigan.
Well, you know, I'm from Detroit.
Really? Okay, good place to be from.
Sure, yeah. You know, I rep Detroit all day long now.
Oh, good. Well, John Conyers started the HR 40 movement. He did it because there was a local city activist in Detroit that every time he saw Congressman Conyers, he would ask him about reparations.
That was.
I know the guy. I think it was reparations. His name starts with an R.
Okay.
It'll come to me. It will come to me, because people call me Reparations Robert now because of his name, Reparations. I think it was Ronnie or Rodney or something. It was something start with an R though.
Okay.
But so John Conyers started championing the issue of reparations, and we know his untimely death. And now Congresswoman Sheila Jackson Lee is doing a phenomenal job out of Houston, Texas, taking up the cause of HR 40. And it is a bill to truly study in lieu of providing a remedy, not just slavery, because that's why I have to tell people a lot, because they say, well, first of all, it should go to only the descendants of slaves, and it should just pay for slavery. And I always have to remind people, and it's something we already know, but sometimes we forget because we just focus so much on the horrors of slavery, and it was terrible, 246 years of terror. But our suffering did not stop in 1865. No. And we have to remember that. And in fact, all of us weren't even free in 1865.
No, we weren't.
Because a lot of the Native Americans, the indigenous tribes, kept their slaves a year later. because they're sovereign nations. And in fact, to this day, some of those tribes don't even recognize the descendants of those freed slaves called freedmen as citizens of those tribes. And so our suffering didn't stop in 1865. After 1865, we had Jim Crow, we had black codes, the origination of the Ku Klux Klan with racial terror, Black Wall Streets all across the country, namely Tulsa, and other cities being destroyed, redlining, convict leasing, mass incarceration, political destabilization of our communities with the killing of our leaders, Malcolm X, Medgar Evers, Martin King, so many others. And then you had the introduction of crack cocaine into our community, drugs, period.
Yes.
Called war on drugs. And so our suffering did not stop in 1865.
No.
Once you realize that, so the payment, the repair has to go past 1865.
Amen. Amen. Boy, I've got some things in the chat. And Loretta, I'm gonna get back to you about the California thing, because that's on my bucket list to talk to him about too. Dr. Deborah Jenkins. Now, she actually was on the show as well, talking about reparations. And it's so fascinating about everybody has their different perspective on how to approach it. And that's a wonderful thing.
Yes, it is.
Ask him if he feels HR 40 is sufficient in 2023, giving honor to Congressman Conyers for being this journey almost 40 years ago. Shouldn't we be beyond a study and on to a remedy at this point? I would say yes, but God knows you got to get that passed in order to get to the remedy, though, right? The way Congress works, but it's a mess.
No, absolutely, Dr. Jenkins. We should. In fact, if they had done right by Sherman Field Order number 15, we wouldn't even be having this conversation today. If they had done right by the Freedmen's Bureau, we wouldn't even be having this conversation today. The fact is, and the sad reality is, the United States of America, while it has done studies on the atmosphere in Mars, we're doing studies right now on the sand in Mars.
Right.
We've done studies on how blue is blue, how green is green. We've also done more serious studies like the 9/11 Commission and who killed JFK and things of that sort. This nation has never done a study ever on her treatment of Black people in this nation.
That's right.
We all have our assumptions. Like people have their assumptions about who killed JFK. We have our assumptions about what happened in 9/11. But nothing can be solidified without that congressional study.
Right.
Where you have, and no study is better than the United States Congress that has subpoena power. They can get answers to questions that nobody else can.
Right.
And we've never had that for our experience. After the Holocaust, the Jews had that. We had crime commissions after the apartheid in South Africa. They had that, the truth commissions. We, as a people in America, Black folks in America, we've never had a commission that studied our trauma. Yes, we know it was terrible, but all we know is just a tip of the iceberg, because the true in-depth study has not yet been done. For those in the foundational world of writing grants or applying for foundation money, you may know the problem that you're trying to address, but that foundation will not give you a dime if you can't prove or show what you are trying to get funding for, that there's a need. And the same thing with folks who have government contracts. You providing a service, but the government will not give you a check unless you show proof that you provided that service. The same way.
Right. Dr. Jenkins, she's got a bunch of stuff in here. There's CARICOM to address the reparations of brothers and sisters in the 19 Caribbean islands. And I saw something while I was researching this topic again about Germany is trying to, I don't know how to pronounce that African tribe. They're in South Africa somewhere, the Bantu people. I can't pronounce the name, that they're supposed to get some form of reparations themselves too.
Everybody's getting reparations. And yes, I'm a member of NARC, National African American Reparations Commission.
I was going to ask you about that commission. That was one of my questions, actually.
One of our commissions is very much so involved with CARICOM, and we fully support that. The sad truth of the matter is, the You're right, Dr. Jenkins. But the Japanese, I get to that question when you answer. The sad truth of the matter is, we have in our hemisphere, speaking of the Caribbean, the Haitians paid reparations to the French.
I know, and aren't they still?
Because
they're broke.
They just made the final payment, but the problem is they've been paying for like hundreds of years. And the French were the ones who colonized Haiti. And the French were the ones who brought the black Haitians there. And when the Haitians revolted and won, by the way, they had to pay the French, white folks.
Yeah, I know.
Reparations.
Yeah. So they finally made their final payment?
Yes. So what I read, they it has been finally, but it's something that's been going on for decades. Very much so, decades.
Yeah, I noticed, and when I was going to ask you exactly what is the National African American Reparations Committee?
It's a commission of people throughout the country who support reparations, and not just the country but the world. And it is supported by a lot of other groups who receive reparations in this country, like our Japanese American brothers.
I saw that.
They've been a huge ally.
Yeah.
And they're under a Republican administration and a Republican Congress. And they got like $20,000
right per person.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Okay. So how long you were appointed to this National African American Reparations Committee, right? Okay.
Yes, I was. Was. And it's really disheartening. I mean, I can go through a litany of people who have not had to have a commission to get reparations. When we understand that this country paid repair to the indigenous Americans, right?
Yes.
We paid it to the Japanese Americans. We've even paid it to the Confederacy.
Oh yeah.
We paid it to the South for destroying them during the Civil War. And in fact, for my Southern loving friends, and I love the South, I'm from the South, but the truth is just the truth. When the Confederate veterans, when the war ended, Southern states collected taxes from people like my grandparents to pay the retirement pensions of those Confederate soldiers. And not only that, but when the veterans died, they paid the pension to their widows. And not only that, when the widows died, they set aside money, the same money they were collecting from taxpayer dollars, to create cemeteries for those Confederate soldiers and their widows. And not only that, those taxpayer dollars that are still being collected today in states like Alabama, Georgia, Tennessee, Mississippi, they're paying out, they're subsidizing those Confederate memorials to this very day.
It's just so disheartening. Let's see. Dr. Jenkins says, right, to be honest, the U.S. immigration policies are greatly biased against Haitians as recently as Friday.
And we were holding them basically hostage until they paid the French every dime that the French wanted. Every dime. And that is a sad truth. The reason why Haiti is in the economic shape she is in is because Haiti was forced to pay her oppressors.
Yes.
For the entirety almost of her existence as a nation. Yes. And that's not being talked about enough. People can talk about the aid, the so-called aid given to Haiti after the earthquake, which a lot of folks in Haiti say really still has not materialized. But what we don't talk about is how this country has really had its knee on Haiti's neck. Until they paid the French government in full, and the same government that enslaved them. So, I mean, think about this for a minute. We're on the side of the French government who were enslaving Haitians, violating human rights. But we want to have the moral high ground.
Your audio went out.
Your
you hear me now?
audio went out. Wait a
How
minute.
about now?
Is there something else I can help with?
You there?
I can hear you. Yeah.
You know what? Every now and then Siri acts up on my computer. She
It's,
starts interfering in my lives. I've been noticing that.
yeah.
Interfering. I'm sorry.
Mhm.
What were you saying? I'm sorry.
I was just saying how Haiti has been pillaged and how we have not allowed her to really grow and prosper because we've had our knee on her neck,
Mhm.
and making her pay the French government. And I was talking about how the U.S. was really forcing Haiti to pay the French,
Mhm.
who enslaved them,
Mhm.
and violating human rights
Mhm.
of the Haitians, violating the human rights of the Haitians.
Right.
But now we want to stand on our more high ground, talking about, and I don't like what's happening in Ukraine, but how are we going to stand on the more high ground saying that the Russians are violating the human rights of the Ukrainians,
Right.
when we stood on the side of the French, who was getting paid after they violated the human rights of the Haitians? That makes sense. And on
No,
top of that,
nothing makes
we're giving Ukrainians who come to America monthly subsidies.
I didn't know
We
that.
repair for something we didn't even do.
See, I didn't know about any monthly subsidies. I just
Yeah,
know
they're getting checks.
they're getting checks.
Yes, Ukrainians who come to America get checks monthly out of our tax dollars. They're getting reparations for something that we didn't even do. So for all these folk who say, "Well, why should I pay for something that I didn't do? I wasn't alive then." Who among us was in Russia bombing Ukraine? I'll
None of
wait.
I wasn't
Who
either.
among us told Putin to go and invade Russia? I mean Ukraine. I'll wait.
Yeah.
But who among us is saying we shouldn't be paying money to the Ukrainians? Billions of dollars in Ukraine. And you got black people. You got black people who give me more static advocating for them to get a check for reparations.
Well, we're gonna
Who are agitated that their government is paying Ukraine every day.
yeah,
We're Ukrainians who come to America every day, every month.
we're gonna get on that. We're gonna get on that. Let's see, where is it? I wanna okay, here it is. Loretta said that recently California introduced an interesting financial plan for reparations, you know, the $5 million to everybody.
Mm-hmm.
And I laughed. And then a lot of people, the static that they got back was a lot of people said, we didn't even have slavery here. So how are we going to give you $5 million?
Yeah.
And then the NAACP chimed in and said, no, we don't want, they're speaking for everybody. We don't want the money, but we want you to put this money in the programming and different things like that. They came up with an alternative plan for reparations.
I saw that mess.
Yeah. So let me ask you this, Pastor Turner. If you had a magic wand today, HR 40, the resolution has finally gone through Congress. What would your version of repairing us now look like? What would your version of reparations look like?
Well, I want to say that I must give credence and credit to those who've gone on before me and who've done significant scholarship. One of them just passed away, the great late now Randall Robinson.
Yes.
Rest in peace.
Yes.
His book, The Debt, What America Owes Black America.
Right.
I think really changed the generation.
Yes, it did.
It really has changed the generation. So for those who read his book, for those who read Claude Anderson's Powernomics book, the blueprint has already been somewhat laid. Now, I would also say, and I think they would too, everything we're talking about, everything we're talking about is through a dim looking light, because we still don't know the full horrors of what happened to us as a people. No. We can't even tell you what happened to us in our family.
No, we can't.
You hear me?
Yeah.
We can't even tell you what happened to us 5 generations ago. So in order for you to appreciate, in order for you to get to the remedy, you must really appreciate the damage. we don't even know where we come from.
No.
We just see a continent of Africa. But we don't know which tribe we come from. We don't know. We could have been next in line to be chief. We could have, the land that our ancestors came from, oil, gold, diamonds, uranium, platinum. So really, I think a lot of us make a mistake when we start our suffering when we came to America. And we want to quantify it from that point on. No, you have to also know what they took you from. And most of us don't know that. And then in order to find that out, what? We have to go to a white-owned genealogical company and give them a swab of our DNA so they can be sending us some mail or emails about what we genetically predisposed to get health-wise. That's ridiculous.
I've been hesitant to do it, even though I want to do it, but I don't want all that extra drama that comes
exactly.
with it.
And I think one of the things, if I had a magic wand, a part of reparations would be every Black person in America gets a free genealogical research, not just a swab and by a Black-owned company, because we're not trying to do this reparations to make white folks rich. And that's another thing. If white folks really thought about it, they really, especially the corporations, really may want to be in favor of it today. Because if we got a check tonight, most of the checks going to be deposited automatically into a white-owned bank. That's a fact.
Mic drop right there on that.
If we got a check tonight, most of our checks will be deposited to a white-owned bank, and tomorrow we're going to a white-owned car dealership. Are we going to a white-owned fashion designer company, Gucci, Versace, Yves Saint Laurent, and all that? So if white corporate America was smart, they would be in favor of giving it to us today. Now I'm hoping that in the meantime, in between time, we build institutions, we build an infrastructure, we can keep our dollars in our community with our check.
Do like today, Tulsa, like
exactly, Black Wall Street in Tulsa. Yes. But today, if we got a check tonight, Pam, 2 seconds is deposited into a white bank.
You're right. You're right.
Or going to a white investment firm.
That you're absolutely right.
Even
if you were looking for a Black investor, he or she is tied to a white firm.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
If you buy a house, are you gonna use a Black realtor? Are you gonna really search for a Black realtor or Black brokerage?
Yeah, but here again, just by sheer numbers, we're not there.
That's what I'm saying. If white corporate America was smart, because we're not there today, they'll be pushing for this to pass last week.
That's a very, very good point. But
because of their hatred towards us, they can't see past their guilt of, they're gonna say we did something wrong. But no, if they thought about just the same thing that happened with integration. It wasn't because they just loved us. Because they loved us. No. It's like they realized, we're missing out on a bottom line.
Yeah.
And once we got integration, once we were able to go to these white restaurants and white establishments and white stores and white schools, guess what happened to our stores, our schools, and our establishments? Can't been the same thing. Because the only thing we got left in our community now are Black funeral homes, Black barbers, Black beauticians, and a couple of Black churches.
Well, we got a ton of Black churches.
Well, a lot of Black churches.
And I'm going to get on that a little later. Yeah. Dr. Jenkins said that her daughter was accepted into Hampton. Hampton is an HBCU. They didn't offer her any scholarships, but they gave 50 Ukrainian full ride. How did that happen? And that's one of the reasons why my kids didn't go to HBCUs. They all could have gotten into them. But the thing was, there was no money. There was no money because, like at Spelman and different places like that, even though they've got money, they don't have the endowments where they can just give you money. But and I know Dr. Jenkins ain't joking, but how did they give 50 Ukrainians full rides at private university? That's crazy.
That really is ridiculous. And but to my point, we we ain't talking about the Ukrainians. We got more Black folks saying what we don't deserve as Black people.
Right. Oh yeah, they quick to tell us what we don't deserve, but we built this country.
Exactly. And we got a lot of Black folks who saying it. That's what I'm saying. When I'm doing my marches, Miss Pam, I get you would not believe the feedback I get from some black folks.
What they telling you? Stop doing it.
Why you doing this? You just causing trouble. Don't nobody care about reparation. Really? Don't nobody need reparation. It ain't about what you need. I don't need to pay my bills. I think I'm living nice. I thank God. God is good, right?
Mm-hmm.
I don't need to pay my bills. You don't
Mm-hmm.
need to pay your bills. It's not about what you need. And guess what? To be honest, some of us do. We're just trying to front.
Yeah.
We're just trying to front. Some of you are living check to check and are no check to no check.
No
You're living
check.
on your credit card. So
Right.
stop fronting. But
Right.
then the others of you, if you don't need, it's not about what you need. It's about what you deserve.
Right.
And that's the difference.
Yeah.
We deserve this. We were harmed in this country. We didn't get due process. Our rights were taken. Our women were raped. Our boys were castrated.
Lord.
And we never got repair. We never even saw justice. Nobody went to jail for slavery. Nobody went to jail for Jim Crow.
They didn't.
Nobody went to jail for racial terror. Nobody went to jail.
That woman who sentenced Emmett Till to death, she's still living here somewhere.
And she said she lied.
Yeah, I know. And they won't.
She said she lied.
Alicia Baker Rogers put African Ancestry.com.
Yes.
Is that black owned?
I hope so. She put it on here.
Well, I hope that. I don't know if that's why she did. I don't know.
I hope it is.
But let's see. You can tell that this is Dr. Jenkins' wheelhouse because, like I said, I had her on the show. I almost need to have both of y'all on at the same time.
I love it. I'm here for it.
Little different. She says, in agreement, I just yield at a push for nearly 40 years asking for a study.
Mm-hmm.
At what point? Oh, yeah, I know what she's talking about.
No, and I agree. And I would just say it's a study. It's a remedy study bill. It's a study bill and trying to find remedies. And I'm not opposed to another bill like you've seen in states like California and Evanston that they all have done studies though, to be honest. Because if you really don't, even though we know what we deserve and know we should get something, if you don't have a study beforehand, you end up having numbers kind of pulled out and people kind of laughing at them like the $5 million in California. Unless you can tie it to a specific damage and a percentage of that, folks like, well, where you get the number from? Why you could have said $100 million per black person, And I ain't mad if you can get 5 million, get 5 million.
Where did they? You know what? I haven't really read where they got that number from.
I ain't mad at it. They should have put 50 million for all I care. I mean, if you can get it, get it. If you can get it, get it. But I'm saying, if you don't have a study tied to that, it sounds laughable, right? It sounds like, okay, like where are you basing this number off of?
Right.
So that's why I respect people like Randall Robinson and Claude Anderson, who've done the scholarship, even though it's not with a congressional study, they've done the scholarship with their limited research staff, and they got to a very good number. Right. But it could be a lot more solidified with the full faith and credit of the United States Congress pushing and supporting that commission.
Yeah, so she says, I think she's tying this into what happened with her daughter. Gotcha. This was at the beginning of the war, and frankly, the administration gave the HBCUs to take them in. Hampton was one of them. I didn't know they had given them that money to take people in. See? No shade to people being taken in. However, I don't, but see, I'm still upset. Now I'm gonna tell y'all, do y'all remember at the beginning of that war when the African medical students were over there paying their money to go to medical school in Ukraine and they couldn't get on the buses? Nope. Remember that? Whatever happened to those medical students and stuff that were from Africa? Y'all remember that? In the chat, y'all remember those black brothers and sisters that couldn't get on the buses to get out of Ukraine when the war was just starting?
And so to Dr. Jenkins' point, I remember that vaguely. To Dr. Jenkins' point, they gave these schools support to take in Ukrainians, and they didn't have any really research. They just gave the schools money. America does whatever she wants to do.
Yeah, she does, doesn't she? She does. Yeah.
I can't read. What'd she say?
She said, Pastor, the HR 40 supporters need to have your voice as spokesman, and this does not mean to disrespect Dr. Daniels.
Blessings to you.
Sometimes allows those of us in the grassroots to cause him to be defensive
Yeah.
rather than laying it out as you're doing here. I'm truly appreciating this. Thank you. It's so many comments here. Let me get Marcia.
Bless you, Doc.
Marcia.
But no, I think that they really America, and we saw this with COVID.
What?
They gave out trillions of dollars in repair for a disease.
Yeah.
A disease.
Yeah.
So we can give repair for a disease, but not for racism.
Yeah.
America just still has a problem with black folk. To
Yeah.
be straight up honest about it. America has a problem with black people. We should not have to, we should not, guess what? We should not have to do half of what we're doing.
No,
we shouldn't.
We shouldn't.
This should be something that should have been solved in 1865. It really should have been solved with the Freedmen's Bureau.
And with you giving these dates, I got to go back to an old question I had, but I got to get, the chat is jumping. Marcia, I got your pronunciation of your name right. The Japanese Americans and the Native Americans, these both groups received reparations because of the cruelty they endured. However, when the word reparations is associated with African Americans, it gets to be a hostile conversation.
We just talked about because America still has a problem with black folks.
Yeah, they just.
Now, she doesn't mind giving repair to any and every other group in the world.
Yeah,
and we give repair for folks that not even in America.
Yeah,
but when it comes to black people, she has a problem. That's why I still call this nation. Even some black politicians disagree with this, but I still call America a racist nation.
Oh, it is.
But some folks in office will disagree with you. But it is what it is. The proof is in the pudding.
And if you're not in my skin, you don't know.
That's right. Well, some black politicians would say we not telling the truth.
Like Tim Scott, he doesn't count.
I'm talking about some folks who got D in front of their name, behind their name.
A D.
If they were asked, was America a racist nation?
Oh, okay.
Said, no, it's not.
It is.
It's very much so is.
It's anti-Semitic. It's a whole bunch of
It's
things.
never not been a racist nation. It's always been a racist nation.
Yeah.
From 1776. Even the Continental Congress was racist.
The California Reparations Task Force will present numbers to Governor Newsom in June. One of their primary economists is
Dr. Darity.
Right here.
He spoke at St. Joseph.
Dr. Darity on my show because
he's
right down the street at Duke.
He's a great one. I remember when I was at St. Joe's and he did a video he and his wife.
Yes,
it was remarkable.
Yes,
highlight of my life.
Yes, they're pretty awesome.
I may try to fly out to California for that. I think it's in June. Right, Dr. Jenkins?
It's in June. She says it's in June. And I trust him with numbers without.
I do. I really do. If outside of a commission, he has the most legitimate numbers I've seen as far as reparations is concerned. He and Randall Robinson, the late Randall Robinson now.
Ron White says racism is a terrible disease.
Yes, it is.
It is a disease, so they can throw some repair at the disease.
That's right. They throw repair to other disease, COVID, and it's still here. We got 5,000 shots for COVID, and it's still here. We got 5,000 shots for COVID, Delta, Omicron, and all the Avengers. We got all these shots. And we still got COVID.
He's also a pastor, Ron White. He says many Democrats in leadership shut you down when you mention reparations. What's wrong with us?
He's right about it. He's right about it. We had more co-sponsors for HR 40 than any bill in the House that was not called for a vote. And the former Speaker of the House, Nancy Pelosi, didn't even call it for a vote because she was afraid they were going to lose the Congress, the majority. Guess what? She didn't call it for a vote, and they still lost Congress. They lost majority. So they play politics with our issues.
Mm-hmm.
When black people have been the most faithful supporters of the Democratic Party in
Uh-huh.
America. Nobody's more faithful to the Democratic Party than black folks.
No. Oh, that's a fact. And
That's a
don't
fact.
get into talking about black women being faithful.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
But the problem is reparations, Pastor White, and it's saying, I hate to even admit it, but reparations is not even the number one issue for black people.
what is the number one issue for black people? What
We
you
would
say?
rather talk about potholes in the street than reparations. I'm telling you what God loves, the honest to God truth. I'm at a community meeting, and I'm like, I mean, I'm like, when is somebody gonna talk about this major issue called reparations? They talking about potholes, they talking about crime, and I mean, I get it,
Well,
I get it.
now crime, Lord.
But
Now listen.
all of those things are consequences of us not getting our repair. They're talking about jobs and minimum wage, which is important.
Yes.
But you give us reparations, we can form our own jobs. Forget minimum wage, we can own our own companies.
Yeah.
So I think we don't understand just what reparations can do for us. And reparations is repair from the oldest and the original sin of America that was done on our people. So if you're really trying to do a political program, you need to understand the oldest harm that's happened to you.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not potholes.
Mm-mm.
It's not classroom size of school, because guess what? They weren't even trying to educate our children from the beginning. We had to form Wilberforce, Tuskegee, Spelman, Morehouse because they didn't want to educate us. So
right.
we didn't. I mean, we just started in our parent generation going to their schools.
Yeah,
right?
I'm one of them.
So education was not something we always talked about politically because we weren't relying on the government to educate our children up until recently.
Mm-hmm.
But the original harm to us
Mm-hmm.
was racism, slavery, Jim Crow, black codes, all that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So if you want to talk about what I think should be the number one issue for Black America, is reparations. Period. Don't talk about anything else. Guess what? No other community does. When you go when I go to my Latino friends, they only talking about immigration. Period. Period. When I go to my environmental friends, they only talking about climate change. Period.
I see what you're saying.
And when I talk to my Irish friends, they only talking about Ireland. Period. We the only ones want to talk about potholes, education, crime, environment, minimum wage. We talk about everything. We ought to be singularly focused and get one thing passed. The biggest thing, the oldest harm done to us.
Yeah.
And get that repaired from.
Yeah. Yeah. Listen to I have a few other questions for you. You're a millennial.
Yeah.
The word is that millennials and Gen Zers aren't going to traditional churches. Yet, in our past, that's where all the civil rights and social justice movements got started. Not at a mega church. And when I'm saying mega church, I'm thinking of the churches that, they're multicultural, nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with that. But I don't hear of any of those churches backing any social justice type of issues. In fact, some of the things that I am hearing that's alarming is what your good friend and my pastor talk about this Christian nationalism. And so what are your thoughts about that? Here you are, a young man with a family leading a major church there in Baltimore. How are you using your preaching of the gospel at the pulpit to rally the forces together to think about voting and all these issues and reparations and all of that?
I think we ought to care more about our God and the gospel than our jobs and the people. Meaning, what does that mean? That means that if God called you to preach the gospel, if God called you to preach the word, you can't worry about if you're going to keep your job, if people are going to allow you to keep your job. Because really God gave you that position.
Mm-hmm.
And B, you can't even be concerned about if the people like what you're saying.
Mm-hmm.
That's a bold prophet.
Mm-hmm.
I love the Old Testament prophets. Isaiah, Amos, Jeremiah. We've been never got one convert. They wouldn't be too popular today. And so I think a lot of us, I don't know who a lot of these guys and ladies model their ministries after, but there's not a preacher alive that I model my ministry after.
Mm-hmm.
Not one. I model mine after who I read about in the Bible, the prophets of old, and of course Jesus the Christ. I don't model my preacher after. I don't model my pastoring after mega churches. Not at all. In fact, until I got one, I didn't really care too much for them. To be honest with you. But I think a lot of churches are in survival mode. I think a lot of pastors think they have to have a certain size church to be considered credible. We live in a social media crazed world that if you don't have X number of members, X number of followers, it's not significant. That somehow tarnishes your calling. I think that's a perversion of the gospel and definitely a perversion of the calling of Christ.
Right.
Because God never called us to be popular. He called us to live with purpose.
Right. Right.
And he never called us to be liked either, you know. And so I think that sometimes we get really caught up into that. And we're more amped to give folks our cash app than a scripture, you know. And if we give you a scripture, it's with the cash app following it, you know. And so it's just unfortunately, and I love the church. I love the Black church, especially. But a lot of us have grown a lot more commercial.
I know, and it's no good because we are not training up our kids to know what to do.
That's right.
To know how to survive. We're in a time now that we've never seen anything like this. My mother, 87 in a week or so, and she'll tell you in a minute, I have never seen anything like this. I mean, and I'm a consumer of news because of what I do for a living, and it is absolutely overwhelming, the things that are happening. You can't tell me we're not living in a very peculiar time.
Yeah, and you're right. And what I tell people about my age group, because I hear a lot of the disenchantment from them.
Yes.
If you want the church to change, then you change the church.
Right, you got to be in it to win it.
You got to be in it, and so and it's all, and really, especially in my Baptist brothers and sisters churches, it's all a numbers game. It's democracy. If you got enough votes, you can elect or fire a pastor.
Right.
You know,
that's right.
So you really, taking that passion, taking that energy inside the church instead of just criticizing in the barbershop on the sidewalk.
Right.
But we have a big problem with churches leaving the hood. We got a huge problem with churches not even having transportation ministries anymore because in their eyes, if you can't afford to drive to church, I don't want you to come.
That's crazy.
I'm not gonna tell me the last time you seen a black bus go pick up people to come to church.
Well, our church does.
Well, yeah, I'm not talking about, I know your pastor.
We do.
And we're getting our bus repaired right now.
We have several churches in our community that
good. But for the most part, a lot of black churches are getting rid of their church buses because they're not going to pick up people anymore, pick up people from the projects, pick up people who can't afford to drive their own car to come to church.
Or some of the people really probably, for our elders, they might not need to be driving.
Yeah, that's true.
We have a number of them. Yeah. Dr. Jenkins is on fire. Listen, you're right. I spoke to a group of mostly Black people, about 400 last month, about reparations. They like our zip code. They like our zip code. They're older, and I had to remind most of these seniors who attend church religiously that the Bible, our God, calls for us to prepare for generations. I got their ears then. We've got a lot of work ahead. Yeah. You know what? We're going to have to use the word of God, because just like these people keep saying, well, you know what? I didn't do this. Why should I be paying for this? Well, and now I'm no Bible scholar,
I think
But
you are.
doesn't it say in the word that you have to pay for what your fathers have done or whatever, something like that. It's
Well,
something in the word like that you have to pay for what your fathers have done. Future generations will have to pay for whatever happened in the past. It'll pass on. Those things will happen. You
well,
know.
the Bible talks about blessings and curses going to third and fourth generation,
Uh-huh.
right? And the Bible is very, very clear on the equity of reparations.
Hmm.
When the Egyptians when the Israelites left Egypt, before they left, they got reparations. The Egyptians gave them gold and silver. That's unfortunately the Egyptians, the Israelites used it to build a false god, Baal, but they
Hmm.
got reparations. Zacchaeus, after he got converted, he told Jesus, "Behold, Lord, half my goods I give unto the poor, and if I will tell anything from any man, I will return it to him fourfold." He paid interest on what he did as far as his oppression are cheating people.
Hmm.
Reparations is a biblical term. In fact, it's a theological term.
Hmm.
Reparations, the word is look it up. Don't take my word for it. It
Hmm.
is synonymous with atonement. Who
Hmm.
is the atonement for us?
Hmm.
Jesus the Christ. Imagine if Jesus said what some of us say who are against reparations. God, Daddy, I didn't commit that sin. I
Hmm.
didn't commit that adultery. I didn't tell that lie. I didn't fornicate. I didn't get drunk. Why should I have to go and die and pay for somebody else for a crime I didn't commit?
Hmm.
Why should I have to do that?
Hmm.
Thanks be to God, Jesus wasn't like some of these people who are against reparations.
Right.
He said,
Right.
"Send me,
Hmm.
I'll go." And he is our reparations. He repaired the breach. Thank you, Holy Ghost.
Hmm.
That because that our sin caused the separation
Hmm.
between us and the Creator, God.
Hmm.
But Jesus filled in the gap for us. He was our atonement.
Hmm.
Reparations is nothing if it's not biblical.
Hmm.
It's a biblical term. It's a theological term.
Hmm.
Um, and it is something that even the Old Testament prophets talked about. When you
Hmm.
oppressing the poor, you need to repent and do acts meet of repentance. You
Hmm.
know, not just about turning, but it's about doing something as you turn.
Hmm.
And how God will judge you
Hmm.
based on how you have oppressed his people.
Mm.
Every prophet talked about, literally, Hosea, Amos, Micah. What is true religion?
Hmm.
But to visit the widows, walk
Hmm.
humbly with your God, love mercy.
Hmm.
And seek justice. We are a justice seeking people.
Right.
What is reparations if it's not justice?
Right. Absolutely.
And if you have, that's why we used to chant it in the streets. No justice, no peace.
Peace. That's right.
Proverbs talks about where there is no justice in the land, there is no peace. That's a biblical phrase.
Mm. Amen. Amen.
So we can. That's why it's important for you for us as a church to
Hmm.
talk about this. And this is not some social justice reparations is not something you do in addition to the gospel. It's
No.
a part of the gospel story
Hmm.
that Jesus thought enough of us that he died. He was our repair
Hmm.
for the sins that I commit. It ain't we always like leave it on Adam and Eve. I sin every day. It ain't just Adam sin that he died
Right.
for. He died for my sins.
Right.
And
Right.
folks like to talk about reparations is for slavery. We don't have racism anymore today. The devil is like, we still have racism and racist acts to this very day.
We know that we see it on the news 24/7
All the time.
all day long. I got to ask you this question. As I was doing research on you, I saw this come up in the Afro newspaper out of New York when you were being interviewed, and you emphasized the year 1526
Yes.
as the year that you and some others claim that Africans were brought upon the shores of what is now the United States of America, instead of the date popularized by the 1619 Project. And I want you to explain that a little bit, because I know that I did some research on that, and it was kind of complicated, and it kind of made me, think about, well, I don't know, but you tell us why it is that you use that date of 1526.
Well, simply because that's what happened. Spanish explorers
Mm-hmm.
brought 100 slaves to America in 1526.
Mm-hmm.
And we've been transported, ever since. Slave trade ultimately started around the early 1500s, late 1400s. And right after, really, it shows you how diabolical these Europeans were, that because black folks conquered Europe, right? The
Yes.
most, from the 1700s to the 1400s. And then a few years after we left, or they kicked us out, that's when Italy got so enlightened, and Europe got so enlightened, they entered the Renaissance. Like, we just left. we literally just left a couple of days ago. And now y'all all of a sudden out the dark ages. No, we taught y'all how to bathe. We taught y'all how to read your own Greek languages. We taught y'all how to write. We gave them civilization. We got them out the dark ages, right?
Mm-hmm.
And as soon as they got able to stand on their feet, the Portuguese, because they knew we just left and they saw our wealth,
mm-hmm.
they go down to Africa, start transporting slaves.
Mm.
And the transatlantic slave trade was born.
Okay. Wonder why they didn't use that in the 1619 Project, but anyway.
Yeah, that's a question for them.
Maybe because it wasn't. I was thinking, well, it maybe because they were Spanish and they weren't true from England or English. Maybe that was the only thing I
just count when my ancestors, when Africans were first brought to this country slave, the Spanish brought over 100 of them, and in 1526.
Mm-hmm. Alicia Baker Rogers says, check out Reclaiming the Throne and Out of Darkness on Tubi. She was telling me about this, that on Tubi, it's a free channel, that she was like really getting a lot of knowledge from there. I tell you, it's so much information everywhere, but she's repeated this before several times. Yeah. So Pastor, so what can we do as a public listening to you right here and right now to help push forward this reparations situation? What can we do to honestly help do something? What can we do?
I think it is incumbent upon everybody to make sure they keep the heat on their elected officials. Mm-hmm. I don't care if it's a city councilor, county commissioner, school board member, mayor, whomever. If they come into your church, they already know if they're coming to see me, I'm gonna ask them about one thing: reparations. And that's it. And to support folks who are advocating for reparations. If you have a leader that's not talking about this, you need to find another leader. And I want to offer, for those of you who want to stay up to date on what I'm doing, my Instagram is Rev Dr. Robert Turner. My Twitter is Robert R.A. Turner 1, and Facebook is my name. I try to post. I don't do as good a job as Pam does with posting stuff, but I'm trying to improve.
Let me see. Let me go find you, because I know where you are. Let me find you.
So I would really say that, and we have we have a plethora of Black organizations.
You just Robert Turner on IG.
Is REV Dr. Robert Turner.
Yeah, here it is. Yep, you're right. Yeah,
REV Dr. Rev Dr. Robert Turner. And so we have too many Black organizations for this not to be a number one issue of. And if y'all ever in the DMV area, I would love if you all could walk 1 mile with me, or walk 100 yards with me, or 40 yards, or 2 steps will be fine. in any company would be of great assistance. I'm gonna have my next walk on Silent Saturday. That's April the 8th.
April the 8th.
Second Saturday in April during Holy Week, because this is a holy exercise.
All right.
This be my 7th walk.
Your 7th walk. So you leave from the church and you're gonna go to in front of the White House.
Mm-hmm. Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. We meet up. We leave the church. We go to Carroll Park. Get on Route 1, and we walk that for 42 miles.
Okay.
Lord have
mercy. You got some faithful walkers that have been going with you from your church.
You know what? I have, and God has been so good. Sometimes they don't walk the whole way. I have a brother though who's 66 years old. Who's walked the whole way with me twice. And I thank God for him. He's in great shape too.
Praise God. Praise God. Well, you're gonna get in great shape.
I don't know about myself yet, but he's in great shape. I like cheeseburgers a little too much.
Oh boy.
Thank y'all.
Listen. Anybody got any questions real quick for Pastor Turner before we sign off? Because this has been a great conversation. You can find him on IG. I will post his let me see where your Twitter is, because I find you. I'm all over the place. Let me see.
Yes, you are. And let me know the next time y'all have somebody come down to North Carolina.
Okay. We're gonna have an anti-Semitism confronting anti-Semitism on Tuesday at St. Joseph's.
And that's a big problem.
Yeah, we got 4 interfaith people. We got an Iman, somebody from Duke Divinity.
Good.
The brother, Ted Shaw, that was a civil rights attorney for the NAACP Legal Defense Fund. He's going to be there. Last week we had the Attorney General for Civil Rights, Kristen Clark, at the church.
Nice.
She was dynamic.
I saw that.
Yeah,
y'all doing a wonderful job.
Yeah. Well, you know how Pastor Jay is,
Yeah.
Hey, and if it wasn't for him, I would have never met you.
Never, ever, ever. So tell them I said, what's up?
Yeah, I will. Well, listen, I thank you so much for coming and blessing all of us with your wisdom and knowledge and energy. And Dr. Jenkins, she got to get all of her, she met her match.
Hey, I love it.
You had to see.
Is she out of Durham also?
No, she's in New York.
Great. That's not too far from me.
Yeah, she's in New York. She's not far from you at all. Oh, she must have said something else. Oh, Pastor Ron said thank you.
Yes, sir, Pastor.
Yeah. So no, but she's out of New York, and she is really on it about reparations as well. It's very, she gave us a whole different perspective when she was on, just like you're doing. So it's all good.
No, I get it. And I love her perspective. I love her insight. Really do.
All right. Well, thank you all. Thank you for coming. Thank you all in the chat. Thank you for those who are listening on the after show and all that, and spreading the video. I really appreciate you, and I'll see you next week. Thank you, Pastor. Let's wave and sign off.
All right.